I am back, and you are flying high with me, the Zigzag Man, over the zone in Alameda, California. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production, and I'm happy to be back. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. It's time to talk a little baseball, something that I enjoy doing, as you very well know, my listeners out there. And I have just the man to do it with. I think I have two men, but first man has shown up. He is the rule expert. This is a Maven, ladies and gentlemen, on Major League Baseball rules, and among other things. From the East Coast, please welcome to these airwaves, Rich Marazzi. Nice to meet you, sir.
Hi, Ralph. Thank you. Thank you. Good talking to you.
Yeah, we've talked off the air, and it's really a pleasure because, as you know, I talk to Mavens on a regular basis. But my weak point is baseball rules. And you have a thing going where you're a consultant to major league clubs. You and I both believe that there are between 4 and 10 games decided each year by managers, bench coaches, knowing the rules. Maybe 10 is a little exaggerated, but 4 or 5 games a year. And tell me what you do, how you go about it, and what your day is like.
Okay. Well, Ralph, I work for 10 different major league teams. I was first hired by the Yankees in 2004 by Brian Cashman. And I learned from experience over the years as a rules writer, I'm probably the most, active rules writer in the country, that talking to players and broadcasters that there was a rules education problem in watching players and so forth. I know myself, I played high school and college baseball. I was a catcher, and I didn't learn the rules until I became an umpire, and I further gained knowledge from being a rules writer. So I took it one step further. And so just to give an example, years ago I was watching a Yankee game one night, because I live here in Connecticut. And at the time, Enrique Wilson was playing third base for the Yankees, and they were playing the Blue Jays. There was a runner on base, runner on first base, and the batter had a fly foul ball near the third base spectator area. Anyway, Enrique leaped. He caught the ball, fell into the stands, showed the umpire the ball, which made it a legal catch. However, the rule also is that all runners get one base on that play, you see. So, in other words, the idea here is that I don't believe that most ball players realize that one simple layer of the rule. They understand that if you're airborne and you leave the field to play and you come down in the stands, you're okay, it's legal catch. What they don't understand is the underlying layer is that anybody on base gets one base. It's a dead ball. You cannot make a play from the stands. So,
you mean they tag up and get an advance a base.
If they tag up, means nothing. The ball's dead. In other words, they just have to, the umpire will award them the next base because the ball's dead. And
I did not know that.
He actually awards them the next base, and that's it. So what I'm saying is, there's a runner on third base, scores 1-1 in the 8th inning, 9th inning. Do you want to risk, if there's less than 2 outs, do you want to risk leaping into the stands, making the catch? You'll get the out, but you give up the run. Stuff like that, you see. So I asked Joe Torre if Enrique knew the rule. He says, I'm not sure if he does or not. So I thought that was a strange answer. And so what I realized is that he probably didn't know the rule because no one ever gave it to him, because maybe the manager didn't know the rule. So basically, that's what I do. I go to spring training, and I do a presentation to the various teams. And I do a video presentation with the Q&A, question answer. And during the season, I do multiple reports weekly that I send out to the teams that I work with involving plays that recently happened involving the rule book. It could be obstruction plays. It could be interference. It could be anything. and the idea is that the coaching staff share it with the players. I think the smart teams will have meetings with their players. For instance, I know one of the teams I work with is the Dodgers, and I work with Bob Guerin, one of their coaches, and I know Bob at their weekly meetings incorporates my reports into their meetings. So that's what I do. It's really an all-season-round program. And the idea of it is repetition and continuity, because the rule book is so complex and so much in depth. I've been doing this for almost 40 years now with regard to, writing about rules and so forth, and I was an umpire for 23 years. And every year I learn something new, okay? And I've been doing this for a long time. So you could imagine the amount of depth that there is to the baseball rule book.
Okay, are the rules changing like each year? I know in the winter meetings they have a rules committee meeting. Are there actual changes made, or do they talk about the interpretation of the rules rather than changes more? In other
Change
words,
comes very slow in baseball, Ralph. This year, for instance, as you know, they made adjustments to the sliding rule. Okay, so that was new this year, and basically a runner, if he runs straight ahead towards the bag on a force-out play, okay, he can stay in his lane as long as he doesn't divert his direction and targets the infielder. He's okay. That's about as simple as I can make it for you. Also, this year
they used to have to just have one hand on the base, or just be able to touch the base. And then
it was always in the rule book. It was always in the umpire's manual also that the runner was supposed to be able to reach the base and be able to hold the base, you see. But if you watch many plays in the past, okay, as long as the runner slid before the base or to the side of the base, okay, and they were there to target the fielder. That was their idea was not to hold the base, and there were many serious injuries because of it. And I think it's a good rule that was put in place. But another rule that was put in place this year is if a fielder catches a ball and his momentum takes him into the dugout, the ball's dead. In the past, as long as you stayed on your feet, you can make a play from the dugout. Now the ball's dead. You see, and all runners get one base. Okay?
So it is an idea. Do you really want to risk making that catch? But as an athlete, your natural instinct is to go for the catch.
Exactly. Exactly. However, they at least should be aware of the rule, because they should understand that if their momentum takes them into the dugout, okay. Of course, many dugouts now have a fencing in front, and there's a chance that they won't go into the dugout, but they can flip over that fence too if they're running hard enough. And so if you go into the dugout now, ball's dead, and everybody gets one base. You need to know this stuff, and I always believe it's best to proact rather than react. At least the players need to be told this. There was a play earlier in the year with the Phillies, an infield fly rule situation. Now, when the umpire calls infield fly, batter is out, it protects all the other runners. The runners don't need to run. If the ball's dropped, it drops. If they want to run, they go at their own risk, but they're not required to run. Anyway, one of the Philly runners on third base ran home, and he was tagged out. It's a tag play. There's another part that the players don't know, because it looks like a force out. Runners first and second, third, less than 2 outs. But it's a tag play because nobody's forced to go on that. So defensively, you got to be able to make a tag. Offensively, you've got to understand that you don't have to run. Anyway, he runs and he's out. Well, the Phillies manager, after the game, they asked him if he goes over this with the players in spring training. And he says, no. He says they should know that in high school. And that's where I disagree, because you never assume that your players know the rules. You have to, you can leave any detail uncovered. Okay? The Dodgers had a pitcher a few years ago, named Duane Sanchez. And they were playing the Diamondbacks. And the Diamondbacks batter, Louis Terrero, hit a fly ball about 10, 15 feet over the pitcher's mound. Sanchez took off his glove and flicked it at the ball to stop it. He made contact with the ball, and the rule is the batter automatically gets 3 bases. Okay? Any runners, of course, on base would score. Okay? And the batter gets 3, and if he wants to go for 4, he's on his own. Of course, with the ball being in the infield, he wouldn't try for 4. But something like that. I know Clayton Kershaw has thrown his glove at a rolling ball. You see? So what I'm saying is you think these players know the rules, but they don't.
It doesn't even have to be a fly ball, a rolling ball. See, when I was a kid, yeah, you throw your glove at the ball, it's a triple. But I wasn't thinking in terms of a ground ball, maybe a broken bat ground ball or an swing. That could end up in a triple as well.
Well, you see, because it could be, as long as it's a fair ball or a chance that the ball can become fair. So if it's a little roller up the first base line and it's foul, and the pitcher wants to keep it foul, and he throws his glove at the ball, if the umpire thinks that ball could have rolled back into fair territory, then you got a 3-base award. You see, if the ball is definitely in fair territory, you got 3 bases.
I have a question because a guest on my show, Lenny Randall, is very famous for a play. Would you talk about that play, and would you tell me whether or not that was changing the conditions of the field or whatever? Tell me about Lenny Randall's play.
Well, what he did was he got on his hands and knees and he tried to blow a rolling ball into foul territory so that it wouldn't be fair. And the umpires properly, you see, there are many things that happen on a playing field, by the way, Ralph, that are not covered verbatim in the rule book. However, there's a rule in the book that says umpires can rule on anything that is not specifically covered in the rules. I call it baseball's elastic clause, you see, because they can rule on anything that is not specifically covered. So, in so doing, what they did was they allowed the runner to reach first base, and they said what he did was illegal. However, once again, players will try many different things. Years ago, it was 1957. The Braves were playing the Reds, and the Reds had runners on first and second, and it was a ground ball to the shortstop, Johnny Logan, and it looked like an easy, typical 6-4-3 double play. The runner going from second to third fielded the ball like an infielder. The runner was Don Hoke. He fielded the ball like an infielder, and he was called out for being hit by a batted ball. However, at the time, there was nothing in the rule book that would also call the batter out. Because of that play, they added the rule in the book that if a runner intentionally interferes with a fielder fielding a batted ball, he's out and so is the batter runner. But it wasn't until that particular play happened in 1957. So sometimes plays come up just like laws in courts, okay? They are the result of things that happen, and so this can happen at any time. But that's the beauty of the game. It's got so many quirks and so many different things, but you're not supposed to handle the ball when you're a runner.
Okay. What's the most misunderstood rule in baseball?
Oh, God. It's a good question. I think the infield fly rule is misunderstood. The infield fly rule is a rule that basically says that with runners on first, second, or the bases loaded, less than 2 outs, a batter, it's a fly ball that could be caught by an infielder with ordinary effort. Those are the key words, ordinary effort. Then the umpire calls the batter out, and however, the play's not dead. If any runners attempt to advance, they do so at their own risk. As I said before, it's a tag play. Now, an outfielder can make the catch, as long as it's a ball that could be caught by an infielder. You might recall that play a few years ago in the playoffs with the Kuzma, the Cardinal shortstop. It was against the Braves, and he caught the ball in mid-outfield almost. My opinion is the farther out the fielder has to go, the less protection the runners need. See, the purpose of the infield fly rule is to protect the runners because many years ago, fielders would purposely drop a fly ball and get a double play, get a triple play, you see? Okay?
Right.
So that's what they put the rule in for. But the farther out that the fielder has to go, and the runners can actually go almost halfway is to the next base, and if the ball is dropped, they can keep advancing, which they did that night, by the way, okay? But the umpire called the batter out anyway. And it was by rule, it was a proper call. I was on a show the following day in New York on WFAN, and we were talking about that. And Larry King, who was on CNN for many years, called in, and he thought it was the worst call in the world. And I said, Larry, let me explain something to you. By rule, the umpire was totally correct because the infielder was waving his arms. He was under the ball. He just misjudged it for some reason, you see. But he was waving his arms. Now, when the major league outfielder is waving his arms like that, he's got his chest facing the infield. That's ordinary effort. He's not going out with his back to the infield, where now it becomes possible collision play, where it becomes now, it was a great kind of play, we'll say, okay? Ordinary effort means...
It's an infield fly rule, and you're talking about a ball that's hit to the outfield, so that becomes...
That's right. That's right. As long as it could be caught by an infielder. Now, you can get a fly ball in the infield on a very windy day that the umpires will not call the infield fly rule because of the weather conditions. You see, if it's very windy or if the elements are bad. I remember in the 2009 World Series between, not 2009, maybe it was 2008. I think the Rays were in it. Anyway, in the Phillies. And the weather was so bad that night, there was a fly ball in the infield. The umpires did not call the infield fly rule, and they should not have, because nothing was ordinary effort. Because the ball was buffeting about, and the fielders are challenged. So, and depending on what level you watch a ball game, what might be ordinary effort for a big leaguer would not be for a high school kid. You see? So, then you go even further to a little leaguer. So, in other words, depending on what level that if you're an umpire, you would make that call differently on different levels.
Okay. Now I have a question for you. When the umpires, before every game, go over the ground rules, the managers from both teams are out there, is it just the first game of the series, or is it before every game? And
I believe it's the first game of the series. The last I knew, they would do that on the first game of the series, and then after that, they would just exchange the lineup cards.
Okay. Now, is that just those guys chatting, or is there anything of substance that goes on in that pregame?
No. It's I look at it as kind of a social meeting. Oftentimes, the managers don't even come out. They send one of the coaches out. Once in a while, you'll see a manager come out. Sometimes teams are superstitious. If a coach comes out 3 games in a row and that team has won 3 games in a row, they'll keep that same coach coming out. But normally, the first game of a series, they'll go over the ground rules. And if a team comes in maybe 3 or 4 times a year, I think they go over it the first time. If there's no changes in the ground rule, I don't even think they do it in maybe any kind of subsequent times. But most of the times, it's
Those are my questions. Now we're going to get to know Rich Marazzi a little bit. When were you first bitten by the baseball bug when you were a kid?
Well, I think as far as back as I can remember, my parents bought me a little uniform, and I remember the great smell of the cotton, and the smell of the baseball glove, and I think I was bitten as a young kid. My dad we had catches together, and then I got into the baseball card thing, and I was fortunate that I had a father, a great father, and on his Father's Day, I'll never forget him either, his Father's Day weekend, that he never put a lot of pressure on me, anything that I ever did. And he made the game fun for me. And I had Little League coaches that made the game fun. So I stayed with the game. When you go to a Little League games, and say you've got 6, 8 teams in the league, and yet only 3 or 4 or 5 of those kids are playing by the time they're seniors in high school. Some leave because they just don't have the talent to play at a higher level. Some leave because they get jobs. Some leave because they just lost interest. So I was very fortunate that I've been able to maintain interest because I think of my early background, the fact that the game was a fun game for me. And I remember going to the first game I ever saw at Yankee Stadium in 1954. I went with the YMCA, and just the thrill of going into a big league ballpark, seeing that beautiful stadium with the green lawn, and it never left me. So, but that's me. Maybe it's in my DNA. I don't really know. But as you can see, I've gotten involved in baseball in many different areas, not just the rules.
Now, you went to college in Connecticut?
I went 2 years at Quinnipiac College, now it's Quinnipiac University, and then I transferred to one of the state university schools in New York at New Paltz, and so that's where I graduated from, and So
I have a cousin who went up to New Paltz. He was a musician.
Really?
Kid,
No kidding.
Well, no, his Larry Morell is his name, and he's my cousin. What can I tell you?
Wonderful. Well, it's a good. Matter of fact, I was there this past year, and the school really changed since I graduated, and it's grown a great deal too. And
right.
So, and it's got a very. I understand right now among all the state university schools, it might rank at the top. It's a difficult school to get into.
What city did you grow up in Connecticut?
Ansonia, which is about. I'm between New Haven and Bridgeport. So I'm about 65 miles from New York City, 65, 70 miles, and I'm about 100 and maybe 20 miles from Boston. So I'm close to New York than I am Boston, but I'm right in that triangle.
Tell me about your umpiring experience. Where did you umpire?
Well, I umpired. I began in 1966, and when I no longer realized I was going to be a professional baseball player, I thought that the next, and I never had interest in slow pitch softball. I thought the next best thing for me to do was to umpire and be on the field.
To stay in the game.
Stay in the game.
Did you go to an academy like Harry Wendelstead or?
No, I just we have a local. When you do amateur ball, you go through a local association. You go through like let's say clinics. Then you have to take a test and that kind of thing. And then you go out on the field, and that's where you really learn. So I began doing Little League, Babe Ruth in high school, and then Legion in college, and I've done some independent professional ball in the Haven. And so basically, and I was fortunate, I umpired the Old Timers game in Yankee Stadium for 16 years. That was fun.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been blessed.
Absolutely that, because for those of you out there who are not really big baseball fans, and some that are, don't realize that, first of all, the Yankees started Old Timers Day Baseball.
Right.
And when I was a kid, they'd bring back all these guys would come back year after year. And another one of my former guests, Fritz Peterson, is on Facebook, and he talks a lot about old-timers games and what it meant to him, and he publishes pictures and what have you. How cool is that? How did you get that gig?
Well, I was a writer for Yankees Magazine for many years. I had a rules column, and one day I approached the editor. He says, geez, what's the possibility of ever doing a game? And he brought up with somebody, and one thing led to another, and that was it. I did it for 16 straight years. I had the plate for 3 years. And I mostly did, which I love doing second base because I could run out in the outfield for fly balls and make believe I was out there in center field with Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio, you know. And I was a great deal. But
after a game, when I was a kid growing up in New York, after a game, kids could go down on the field. And you would exactly do the same thing. You just stand and look at Mickey's view from center field out by the monuments. It's an incredible feeling.
Well, remember in the old days, you'd walk after the game, they'd let you walk out through the center field bleacher area, but so the fans could walk out through center field. I remember as a kid picking up a clump of grass and taking it home. Of course, the grass died. I had it in a box for years. But by the way, I want to get back to one thing, Ralph. You asked about the most misunderstood rule in baseball.
Yeah.
I just want to bring this up for 1 second. I think the baseline rule is probably the most misunderstood. And it's a rule that happens almost every night because there's always first of all, let me explain something to you. There is no baseline in baseball until there's a tag attempt. So let's say, for instance, that there's a runner going from second to third base, and there's a ground ball for the third baseman, and he wants to tag the runner. Up until the time there's a tag attempt, the runner could do whatever he wants to do. It's a poorly written rule. So if the runner anticipates a tag, he can go 8 feet to his right, 8 feet to his left, and then when the fielder gets the ball, he has no one to tag. You see? So what I do is, as a rules consultant, I say, well, look, offensively, if you could anticipate a tag, divert your baseline, because first of all, the rule also says that you have to avoid the infielder when he's making a play. It doesn't say how many feet you're allowed to avoid. So you could avoid 10 feet, 8 feet, whatever you want to do. Now, until there's a tag attempt, though, there is no baseline. Now, once the fielder has the ball and he begins making the tag attempt, right at that point, the runner has a straight line to the base he's going to and 3 feet on either side. But up until that time, there is no baseline. You see? And this is what broadcasters fail to give to the people. They say, well, he ran out of the baseline. He can run into the grass. He can do whatever he wants to do until there's a tag attempt. So defensively, I tell the teams that I work with, have your fielders extend their arm as quickly as possible with the ball. So now you've restricted the runner's baseline. So it's the defensive player, ironically oftentimes, that establishes the runner's baseline, you see. And that box between home and first base, that 45-foot box, 3 feet wide,
right.
That box is only there to protect the fielder taking a throw. So if the runner is running out of the box, and if the umpires feel that the person taking the throw at first base, which is normally the first baseman, if he's interfered with by that runner, he's out. If he's not out. So you could be out of the box. You don't have to run in that box, but if you run out of the box and the umpires judge you interfered, then you're out. However, if they think that the defensive team had a good enough angle to make the throw, even though you're out of the box, you're not out. It's a convoluted rule. But generally speaking, there is no baseline in baseball, okay? And a runner could run wherever he wants to run, okay, until there is a tag attempt. And that, to me, is probably the most misunderstood rule in the game of baseball because happens, and it's an important rule because it could be. So you asked before, well, how, being a rules expert, how many games can you win? Well, I do think if you understand the baseline rule, you can get a lot out of it. And, for instance, let's say you got a runner who's on first base and he's picked off. Well, if he runs to second base, okay, and he runs at the target of the fielder taking the throw, okay, which is what he should do, he makes it a tough throw for the first baseman, and he's established his own
over his head or around
exactly. You see, so I say if the shortstop's target is on the pitcher's side of second base, run low. If it's on the outfield side, run high. All you want to do, you are perfectly legal. You see, it is perfectly legal. You can do that. So understanding the different layers of the baseline rule is very important for the running game in baseball. And that's where I show guys video where players have used the baseline user. For instance, it was the run around third base. There's a ground ball to the third baseman, contact play. Almost every runner will stay in foul territory going from third to home. Sure, you should take your lead in foul territory, so in case you're hit by the batted ball, you're not out. But once the ball gets by you, you can go into fair territory and get between the thrower and the catcher. You have the right to do that. Most runners will stay in foul territory and give the fielder a throwing lane. So I think probably the baseline rule might even trump the infield fly rule as regard to the most misunderstood rule in baseball.
Wow. You just put that in my head right now. That a guy trying to not be hit, that's a natural instinct. But
sure.
Once the ball, again, is behind your ground ball to third, you could get there. That makes it almost impossible for them to get you at home plate.
That's right. Because whoever practices that anyway? Whoever practices even throwing from first to second base with a runner in the line of the throw. People don't practice that stuff.
That's why catchers take that step when catcher little bunt outside of the bunt or in a
right. Get the angle. They have to get the angle.
They'll
right.
take that step to the right instinctively and get out of the baseline the other way. So just as the fielder gets into the baseline, just as the runner gets into the baseline, a smart fielder will get out of the baseline.
Right. In other words, that first of all, that 45-foot rule is a terrible rule because the runner has to exit the box anyway to touch the base, and most runners run out of the box anyway. And if the defense completes the play, there's never any interference call. However, a first baseman could break his arm on that play because the ball is tailing in, and if the runner is running out of the box, he's obstructing the view of the first baseman. And if the catcher is thrown, is a right-handed catcher always, the ball's going to tail in. And if the pitcher's it's going to, so my opinion is the rule should be, if you're out of the 45-foot box, the last 45 feet, okay, All right, the moment you're out of the box, if there's a play at first base in the catcher's area, okay, in the bunt area, you should be called out. And they would clean that play up overnight. But every year you will get controversy. People don't even understand that box is not a baseline. All that box is an area. So any tag plays is the same for any base. Going home to first, first to second, second to third. Any tag plays, the runner could, if he anticipates a tag, like I told you before, he can run wide in either direction. You see, that box has nothing to do with a baseline. It's just an area.
Gotcha.
It's not a baseline.
You illustrated a point that's a little off topic, but what a tremendous advantage it is for a first baseman to be a left-handed thrower.
I agree.
For that reason. I mean, if you could just picture that angle, we talk about the possibility of getting hurt is decreased immensely right there.
I agree, and I think I've been arguing with Major League coach, not arguing but discussing, and I got many coaches, and now I think or several that agree with me that, a first base. Say are you a right-hander, Ralph?
I am.
Okay, I don't know if you ever played first base anywhere, but we'll say right-handed first baseman, when they receive the ball from the third baseman, shortstop, or second baseman, they make themselves long, correct? They'll have their right foot on the bag, and they extend their left leg with their glove side, correct? However, on plays in the bunt area, you will notice how the first baseman, right-handed or left-handed, will stay almost like in a straddle position and keep their glove almost even with the bag. I tell these guys in late developing plays at first base, the first baseman should make himself long. So he gives the catcher or a pitcher a target way outside from the bag. The closer you have your glove to the bag and the runner's, we'll say, position on the base path, the more danger you're in. Plus, you will get to the ball quicker if the glove is extended. Okay, all right, because the umpire makes that call by sound. Any call at first base, the umpire listens for the ball at the glove, and he watches the runner's foot touch first base. So it's a sound call. And you will hear that sound. What you want to do on defense is get that sound as quickly as possible. And I think you have a better chance if you make yourself long on plays that are in the bunt area and extend your glove.
As well.
Yeah.
As well as other plays. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That brings us to an interesting question. The flow of the game, I'm all for getting the play right. You're an umpire, so it's in your genes to want to get, and as a fan, as a purist, you want to get it right. And we've been looking all these years to find out a way that, so fair call, call them right. There's a book written, call it right. All right. The flow of the game, because of the instant replay, is being really curtailed. It is virtually, from a listening standpoint, listening to games on radio, it really is difficult these days. What with the calls, what can be done to speed it up? I know there's better technology than having these guys go over to the side and putting headsets on. They got earplugs now. Everything is wireless. What's going on with that?
Well, you see it just the same as I do. I think as far as pace of game goes, I still think the responsibility is in most cases is the batter. You got to keep the batter in the batter's box, and you got to get pitchers to pitch quicker between pitches. Now, there are rules about that, okay? But when there's somebody on base, that the pitcher can hold the ball as long as he wants. But you got to keep the batter in the batter's box. And as far as the replay goes, I was in favor for many, many years to use the replay on long balls, fair or foul, whatever, and maybe in postseason games, because they're so important, to use the replay to extend it. My only criticism for years was, as far as the replay, was that I could even do without the replay as long as the fans didn't see the play either. For instance, if you're umpiring first base and there's a bang bang call at first base and you blow the call, okay, all right, okay, all right. If the call dies right there, like back in the radio era where you never saw it again, the play just died, and it was still the umpire's word against the manager's word. However, once the whole country could see the replay and the umpires could not see it, I thought there was something very unfair about that. You know what I mean? You take the Denkinger play in the '85 World Series with the Jorge Orta, okay, and the play at first base. What happened with that play is he told me himself, Denkinger, is that he thought Jack Clark was going to take the ground ball unassisted and tag first base. However, what happened is that he didn't, and then was it Todd Worrell, who's 6'5", came over to cover the bag, and Denkinger got too close to the play, and it was a soft flip toss. Like I told you before, you go by sound on that play too. So because he got too close, he had to look down to see if the runner was touching the bag. He had to look up to see when the ball was caught, and he blew it. You see? Now, to me, if you had a replay in those days, the guy would never be vilified, and because the call would have been reversed. And I felt bad. So why should the whole country have seen that play, but the umpire couldn't see the mistake? I would say that if you're going to use replay, everybody's got to see it, including the umpire. And the umpires have to take part in it. But for years, baseball would allow the fans to see it and make a mockery of the umpires. Maybe I'm too pro-umpire in a sense. I don't really know. But I felt bad for the umpires for years because fans were allowed to see the mistake that could not be corrected. Just imagine you going to work every day, whatever job you have, and you make a mistake, and everybody else in your building.
Well, I'm a nap taker.
Right? It's ridiculous. You know, you can't correct it, but yet you're made a goat because of the bad call, and the whole country sees it. I never agreed with that. So as far as the replay goes and pace the game, I think the responsibility mainly is in the hands of the batter. How they can speed up the technology, I don't know. I don't understand some of these times they're looking at the play for 3 or 4 minutes. I don't know what the hell they're looking at.
If they're looking at it for 3 or 4 minutes, that means that there's no clear that the call should stand, because there's no clear tell you why should they look at it for 3 or 4 minutes if there's nothing clear coming out that the play shouldn't stand.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a very good point. And if you have to look at it from so many angles, I mean, I know the idea is to get the play right, okay, but if it's that, and if they have the technology, maybe they feel that they can do it anyway, and it's, you know, I don't know how many games are affected by a 3 or 4 minute delay. I just don't know, but they must have figures.
Well, it's not just the effect of the game; it's the effect of the whole pacing of watching the game, the fans, the announcers. It's all it's new. They're working on it, and
well, they cut down the advertisement time between innings, you know, and that helps a little bit. I think it cuts down the game. Because back in the day, you remember back in the 50s, you might have a minute and a half between innings, or a minute 15 seconds, and the games went quickly. Most games were, you have a Sunday doubleheader start at 2 o'clock, and they were done by 6:30. You know.
I know what you mean about advertising. Everything that you hear, there was a bit, a comedy bit by a very, very bright guy who would. The batter stands in for the first time. Batter stands in for the first time. Moment is brought to you by Rizzo's Tire. Everything is announced. Everything has a thing. This break is brought to you. Pitching change brought to you by Change a Tire.
I know. Right. That's what it is. It's the first pitch of the game is brought to you by, you know. But that's how I look at it. But the money that comes into baseball in these different revenue streams is incredible. When you take Fox, you take ESPN, you take MLB.com, I think each team before the season begins gets about $70 million. So that's before the season even starts. So I don't think people are going to upset. I mean, take the All-Star game. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke that whoever wins that game gets home. The league gets home field advantage for the World Series.
That is that Selig will always be remembered. A Selig folly, I call that.
But Fox wants once again, Fox wants higher ratings because it means more advertisers. And the higher ratings you get, the more advertisers are going to pay. And Fox pays MLB a lot of money, you see. So
and
that's what
it's something. Figure Fox is going to get more out of it from that standpoint.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Like you're talking now about Bumgarner and maybe Arrieta and maybe other pitchers want to take part in the home run derby in the All-Star game this year. Well, I mean, Fox knows that will create interest. Fox is obviously, because it's going to give maybe some better rating because the people will be curious with pitchers in the home run derby. So it might increase the ratings maybe a couple percent, whatever it is. But, this means possibly better advertising numbers for the next year. And
if
so
there's
it's all about
in that. Doesn't that tell you that we don't need a DH? If there's an interest in pitchers hitting, good, bad, or indifferent, we don't need a DH.
Well, as far as the DH goes, Ralph, my opinion is this. I could live with or without it. I would just like to see it uniformed in both leagues one way or the other. I could live without the DH. I think the DH in baseball, in the American League, I think has worked pretty good. I mean, it makes the game more exciting because most pitchers are automatic outs. You get a handful like Bumgarner, okay, and some other pitchers who are good hitting pitchers. I was Syndergaard from the Mets, and there are others. There are only a handful.
When I was a kid, there was Newcomb, there was Turley, there was Lawson.
Oh yeah,
hit. A lot of
White
guys.
was a good hitter. Yeah. But I think pitchers in those days practice hitting more, and they could do it today too. But they're probably afraid they're going to probably hurt no obliques or whatever.
Their arm and agents and being coddled and.
Right. But my opinion is, I just wish it would be one way or the other. I could live with either or, but I really wish it would be one way or the other. I think
which way would you prefer it?
You know what? I think if I had a vote, I probably would vote for the DH, only because baseball does need offense to make it a popular sport among the fans. And from a fan standpoint, I think they need more offense. From the baseball purist standpoint, the answer is no. We don't need a DH. But and I'm looking at it from a fan standpoint, and the game is for the fans. It's not for the purists only. It's for the general fans. And I think most general fans want to see scoring. And so if that's the case, fans get, was it kicked in the butt enough. And all the rules, if you remember, since 1968, have really gone in direction of the pitcher, of the batter. They've lowered the mound.
The strike zone, lowering the pound.
Strike zone. And everything is done to get more.
Are there rules for what a strike and a ball is? Is it the armpit to the knee? Isn't that the rule?
Well, let me say this to you. As far as the strike zone goes, yes, it's in a rule book. It's basically the high end of the strike zone is the solar plexus. I think the low end is the hollow of the knee. Okay, but people don't understand what a strike zone is. That it's something that happens when a batter is about to take his swing. It's not in a stance. When the batter is in the stance, the batter is more erect. When you're about to swing, your body lowers. You see. However, even with that said, most pitches, if the ball is a few inches above the belt, they won't call it a strike because that's the way the game has been umpired for years. The best answer I ever got I can give you as far as strike is this: as an umpire, you got to see a lot of pitches. Number one. Number two, Chief Justice Potter Stewart of the Supreme Court many years ago said, "I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it." Okay, and I think that's the best way to. I think it's the best way to define a strike for most umpires. It's hard to define, and it's not where the catcher catches it. However, if the catcher does not catch it well, he doesn't present it well, you won't get a strike call either. So, it's a very difficult subject, the strike zone. You will never get a perfect strike zone because the game is umpired by all different individuals. Everybody's human. Their eyesight can be slightly different. Their perception of the pitch is slightly different. What you got to do, though, is try to be as consistent as you can, and you go from there.
Right. If you're going to give a strike on the outside corner in the third inning, give a strike on the outside corner in the fifth inning, and the ninth inning.
That's
exactly.
Right.
So players
that's all they ask an umpire is stay there the whole game. Stay there the whole game, and I think the good umpires do. But I'll tell you, when you have to call 300 pitches a night, and you're calling a great game, and then ninth inning you blow a pitch that puts a runner on base or puts a pitcher in trouble, that's the only pitch that the people are going to remember, you know. And that's that. You know, I think umpiring home plate is one of the toughest jobs of any sport for any official because of the number of decisions he has to make in the course of an evening.
I appreciate that, but I can't imagine it being any tougher to call than because everything is so relatively stable in front of you. I can't imagine it being tougher to call than basketball or even hockey. In terms
I don't disagree, except that when you're behind the plate and these guys are throwing 94 miles an hour and they got these sliders and they've got all different kind of pitches, they've got splitters, they got this and that. It's not that easy. The strike zone is three-dimensional, and like I say, it's a catcher could set up on the inside corner, and if he gets fooled by a pitch and he has to reach his glove on the outside corner, many umpires will not call it a strike because it just doesn't look good. You see, I tell the teams that I work with, I say, as far as the strike zone goes, for high pitches, have your catchers catch the ball as late as possible, because the laws of physics, ball has to descend. Okay, you throw a baseball, it's eventually going to go to the ground. So when you pitch from the mound to the catcher, the ball has to. The later you can catch a high pitch, the better it looks to the umpire as far as the high part of the strike zone. If you catch it early, it looks like a definite ball. Low pitches, you want to catch with your with your catcher's mitt, with your fingers raised to the sky, pointed up. You want to catch the low pitch as early as you can in the strike zone, so that you can get the knee pitch. If you keep your glove back, then the ball looks lower. So low pitches.
Shouldn't umpires be paying more attention to where the ball crosses the plate?
What?
How the catcher is set up?
Hello?
Hello? Are you still with me?
I think we lost each other.
Oh, my God. I hear you. Do you hear me? Okay. Listen, I hear you, and now I'm not hearing you. So what we're going to do from this end, I'm going to close it out and tell you, Rich, tell the audience what a tremendous thrill it was for me to have Rich Marazzi on, and we are experiencing technical difficulties, so I will hope that he returns and tell you all out there that it was fun until the very, very end. I didn't get to thank him for being such a terrific guest.
Yeah, you guys were wonderful.
Are you back?
No, it's me, Tony. I've been listening to the whole discussion.
Tony! We lost Rich. You still hear me? I still hear you. Where's Rich?
Perfectly. It was a great discussion, and I'm very happy to have brought you guys together for such a great discussion on rules.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tony D'Angelo from Connecticut, my godfather.
Well, if you're going to call me the Godfather, you have to call Rich the Great Godfather, because the people I know through Rich. What we didn't discuss with Rich is that for years and years and years, he had the Inside Yankee Baseball show on WICC in Bridgeport, and a lot of old players were interviewed. I mean, Al Downing and Bobby Brown and a lot of the people whom we mutually interviewed, and that's all because of the fact when I call an old player and I say, I'm Tony D'Angelo, I'm a friend of Rich Marazzi's, they're more than willing to talk to me. So I'm very grateful to Rich.
Well, and I am to you, because when I call players and authors and managers and I say, I'm a friend of Tony D'Angelo's, they say, who?
I'm not surprised.
No, they don't. I'm just being a silly old guy, which is what I do. Rich is terrific. You heard him talk about having umpired countless old-timer games.
Yeah, he did that for a number of years.
At Yankee Stadium.
The Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
He
it was
also
terrific.
authored several baseball books.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. I wished you would have identified yourself earlier on, and you could have.
Well, you were having such a great discussion. I didn't want to
Rich
stick
was
my
still
two,
on.
so there was no need to.
Did I do
all
right?
And we'll talk about all that other stuff.
All right. Hey, listen. Thank you. Thank you for bringing us together, Tony D'Angelo. And if you're listening out there, Rich, and I'm sure you will, because I'll get you a link to this as soon as I publish it later in the week. And I'll get you a link as well, Tony. Thank you for everything. If you're listening out there and you're my listening audience, I just want to implore you to just simply hang in there. You know, life ain't easy. Keep your dreams wet. Keep your humor dry. Try to stay out of recruiting offices, military recruiting offices as a kid. And life will go a lot better. And thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Zig. We'll talk soon. Bye now.
All right. Bye. Bye, everybody.